What's going on, guys? It's Suk and I am back with a brand new video on SuperDuprTech. Now in today's video, I'll be bringing you my full and in-depth review of the brand new 2020 iPad Pro. Also, I shall be getting the new 2020 MacBook Air delivered very soon, so be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified of when I upload videos on that. But without any further ado, let's hit the titles. So let's start off by talking about the design. The design of the 2020 iPad Pro is almost identical to that of its predecessor from 2018. It's available in two models, being 11 and 12.9 inches, and two different finishes that are silver and space grey. There are also two speakers on the top and bottom of the device, and on the bottom there is a USB-C port which can be used for many things, from charging the iPad, transferring files, and even connecting to an external display. There are also 5 studio quality microphones on this iPad, one by the LiDAR Camera, another 2 on the top, one on the left side of the device, and the final one by the rear cameras. There is also a smart connector on the lower mid-rear portion of the iPad, which allows for a smart keyboard to be connected. More on this in just a minute. Overall, the design of the iPad Pro is awesome and it's a favourite of mine and others. It's great to hold and doesn't feel too slippery, though because of how thin the device is, you are still able to actually bend it pretty easily, so you may want to pop it in a case. iPads, and more so iPad Pros, have always had great displays. Yes, they're not OLED, but the market for tablets with OLED displays is also non-existent, not to mention the price would be a lot higher than the £769 asking price for the entry model. But the display remains top tier with great contrast, good brightness, and next to no backlight bleed. It's capable of refreshing up to 120 times in 1 second to make playing games, scrolling through a web page, and using the Apple Pencil an effortless experience. It has a resolution of 2388 by 1668 on the 11-inch model and 2732 by 2048 on the larger 12.9-inch model. Both are fully laminated to the display glass and support Apple's True Tone technology. They both boast a 1.8% reflectivity, which means working outdoors or in direct sunlight is great and doesn't affect anything you see on screen. Now pair this with a 600 nit display brightness, you'll find that the screen is good enough that you are able to work in all environments. So here's where things get a little weird with this model. This iPad Pro pretty much uses the exact same processor which is found in the previous model, which came out around 16 months ago. Tests have been conducted which show that the A12Z has a single additional GPU core, which is in fact a rebinned A12X Bionic from the 2018 models, which had this GPU core, though the core was inactivated. On this new model, the additional graphics core is active, but does this warrant purchasing a brand new iPad Pro? Most likely not. But that being said, the A12X was already fast and years ahead of what competitors had been producing, so it's not like you're going to be getting a much slower machine. In fact, of course, you are going to be getting a slightly faster machine, but I'm just saying, if you find the 2018 model for a good price, it might be a good idea to purchase that over this one for the time being. But there are some interesting reasons as to why you may still want to purchase this model over others. Now, one of these is the cameras. The cameras on the iPad Pro models this year have had a very big update. Now you will find a wide and ultra wide alongside a LiDAR camera, which is made up of a time of flight sensor and an infrared dot projector, very similarly to how the LiDAR camera system works for Face ID. Only now, as opposed to scanning for a face, it now scans to map out the environment the iPad Pro is placed in. These together have been the single biggest upgrade to the cameras on any Apple device. We have never had a new model debut with an additional 2 cameras and never more than 1 on the rear of an iPad, even the iPad Pros. Now yes, for 80% of you out there, you won't really care too much about the cameras, but for professionals whose needs could be, for example, out on a construction site and they may need to take still images but still love the fact that they're able to take an ultra wide image so that they're able to fit more into the field of view, They then could be able to attach the images to their reports alongside any drawings that they may have done right there and then. There are also sports coaches that will love to get shots of the entire field so that they'll be able to see where players are positioned and then coach them on how their positioning is off. And with advancements allowing you to record video from multiple cameras simultaneously, content creators, directors and so much more will be able to get so much great use out of these cameras. The LiDAR camera is the interesting one, as this is the first Apple device to implement this technology. It stands for Light Emission Detection and Ranging, which means it uses pulses of infrared light to map out its surroundings, enabling a more immersive augmented reality experience. It remains to be seen what Apple or its developers will do to take advantage of this new camera technology, and who knows, maybe Snapchat will make an augmented reality filter. There have not been many changes to this new generation of iPad Pro. The ultra-wide camera, the LiDAR sensor and the additional unlocked GPU core. It also has 5 studio quality microphones, which means video footage, voice recordings and pretty much anything else that uses the microphones will sound better. The speakers on this year's iPad Pro also remain unchanged, which is underwhelming, but I find it very difficult how Apple could improve upon them. They can get very loud and produce vibrant audio, which has good audio separation between highs, lows and midtones, whilst also not distorting. There are 4 speakers, one in pretty much each corner of the device, which makes consuming media a pleasant experience. Here, take a listen, it sounds great. As with the previous model, you have a single USB-C port, which thanks to iPad OS can be used for anything from connecting to an external display or hard drive to charging an iPhone or charging the iPad itself. When Apple introduces its Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pro, it will have pass-through charging for the iPad. More on this when the product gets released. I truly love this port and I believe it is the future of connectivity. Battery life on this iPad Pro is standard, nothing out of the ordinary for an iPad. That means an all-day battery life. On average, I would constantly finish the day with about 15% remaining, but this included some light gaming, which is something I'm pleased to say you can do on this device. More on this in a little. Most days consisted of standard stuff from browsing the web, consuming video content streamed through the internet such as YouTube and Netflix, FaceTime calls, editing images in Photoshop and typing reviews in Word. It would also take on average around 2.5 hours to complete a full charge from 0%. The iPad Pro arguably would not be half as pro if it wasn't for its accessories. These accessories truly turn the device into something else altogether. So from drawing, painting, designing, marking up and signing off PDF files, the Apple Pencil will help with all of that. Not to mention that using this iPad with a Mac as sidecar, the Apple Pencil is great because it can actually act as a mouse cursor. Unlike Apple Pencils from the past, this Apple Pencil charges and pairs up by attaching to the side of the iPad, which can be very handy. The Smart Keyboard Folio is an okay accessory. At the end of the day, it gives back the 40-ish% of the screen that would normally be taken up by the on-screen keyboard. I, unlike others, do not have an issue with this keyboard, and I find that I'm still able to get work done faster than using the on-screen keyboard, though I hate paying almost 20% of the price of the iPad on just a keyboard case. Now that we have gotten the hardware out the way, let's talk about the software. This iPad Pro comes running iPad OS 13.4 out the box, which means you get all the same features that the 2018 model gets. You get the trackpad support, the game controller support and the file explorer and so much more. If there was one area that Apple could have differentiated between the two generations, it is software. And with the hardware changes being very subtle, I am hopeful that this year's WWDC will shine on this model and give us software features that aren't available on the previous generation. I know that we have only just truly had trackpad support integrated into iPad OS, but it's frustrating that there is no secondary or right click that you can do to bring up a contextual menu. I feel that if Apple were to bring over their professional apps such as Final Cut Pro, that they will need to address this. I welcome the support of a cursor, but it's fairly limited to only selecting icons and gesture control in its current state. These are baby steps, and we are definitely moving in the right direction towards where iPads can become devices that can actually replace a laptop. If you're one of the millions out there which play Fortnite on a PC or games console, you'll really like this. You'll really like that you're able to play these kind of games at 120 frames per second on this iPad Pro, and you can do that even while using a controller, that being a DualShock 4 or an Xbox controller. Now this is crazy, as gaming at 120 frames per second is something that for the longest time has been limited to PCs, and now you can do that on a device that is so much lighter, thinner and portable, meaning you could really use the iPad Pro as a portable games device. Though that being said, higher end games such as Battlefield, Call of Duty Modern Warfare and those of that league will not of course play on this device, but I am really hopeful that with Apple Arcade and the power of the iPads only forever increasing, that developers will now start porting games to run on iPad OS. I mean, if they're able to run Fortnite on this iPad Pro at 120 frames per second, then I could imagine something like Call of Duty Warzone also being ported over, especially as that game in particular supports crossplay between different platforms. So you could imagine someone on a PC, an Xbox and a PlayStation all playing together with someone that has an iPad Pro. There is much to like about the iPad Pro software, but the best thing is that the device will continue to be supported while into this next decade, and you can expect a lot more features and additions as time goes on. Overall, I'm loving the direction that iPad OS is heading in. The iPad Pro now starts off with 128GB of storage, which is a welcome and quite frankly overdue change. It now means that the base iPad comes with 32GB of storage, the iPad Air and Mini start off with 64, while the Pro start off with the most at 128GB and can be purchased with up to 1TB worth. This can be used for storage of games, movies, photos or anything else, but regardless, it's good to see that we're getting more value at the same price point when compared to the previous models. The same pricing structure is also in place, with the 11-inch starting off at £769, whereas for the 12.9-inch it's an additional £200. And as I said earlier, they can be purchased in either a space grey or silver finish, and you also have the option for a cellular model which can be connected up to a local 4G tower. If there's one thing that I'm unsure about or don't like too much, is that Apple haven't given most users of the previous model much reasons to upgrade. Yeah, sure, the 2018 iPad Pro is a beast and its design is aging very well, but an additional camera which is going to get used sometimes at best, as most people use their smartphones, probably isn't the best way to market this device. A LiDAR camera which even Apple says is to be used for augmented reality, which truth be said, I'm barely seeing anyone using on their phones. So on an iPad that pretty much costs £1,000, will they here? Like I said, some professionals will need better depth sensing capabilities, which is awesome, but once again, it's catering for a very small number of users. The A12Z is a rebinned A12X from back in 2018, which now has an unlocked graphics core which doesn't improve benchmarks as much as you'd think. This makes me wonder if that GPU core is actually being used to help out the LiDAR camera when processing data, much how the 2018 models that had 1TB of storage also came with 6GB of RAM. I just find it a slightly underwhelming update, but who knows, with WWDC coming up and the release of the Magic Keyboard, Apple may give us more reasons to spend our hard-earned cash, and as I've said before, I love the iPad Pro. It's just the 2018 iPad Pro was too ahead of its time, and compared to this, it would seem a much better deal if you found that on sale with some good discounts. So that has been it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to hit the like like button, and if you are new around here, then be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified of when I upload and release any of my new videos. If you have got any questions with anything you've seen in this video, then be sure to leave them down below in the comment section, or alternatively you can hit me up on my social media, links to which can be found down below in the description. And while you're down there, I will also leave prices and links to where you can purchase both the 2018 and the 2020 iPad Pro models. Once again, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.